Welcome to ValTALK, where real conversations are shaping the future of property valuation. I'm Marissa Loeffler, your moderator for part two of episode The Future of the Appraisal Profession. And I'm joined by our ValTalk host, Jeff Hogan, Chief Appraiser here at Valligent. With over 2 decades of valuation experience, Jeff brings industry expertise and real-world perspective to every conversation. Part two of today's episode features an industry leader who's been at the forefront of policy, regulation, and progress, Kelly Davis, president of the Appraisal Foundation. With more than a decade of leadership at the Appraisal Foundation and a background that includes serving in Ohio state government and overseeing appraiser regulation, Kelly brings us true depth of experience and information to the industry. In part two of this episode, we'll discuss technology, the impact of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae forms, and more on how to get involved in the Appraisal Foundation. If you didn't catch part one on ValTalk, you can tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So Kelly and Jeff, take us into the second half of the appraisal profession conversation.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Kelly, for giving us more time to talk through some of these things. It's really been a great conversation. If you didn't hear the first, we're not going to rehash everything we talked about. It was some really good information for everybody on that first episode. So please go back and do that. This will make this one kind of tie it all together. But just as we'll give you a quick snippet. So Kelly, I know, the Appraisal Foundation is very, very critical to anybody doing any type of appraisal, any type of evaluation. So I know we talked in a prior one about all the things that the foundation is, but if you can just give us a little snippet of what, again, for those that didn't hear that one, a little bit about what the Appraisal Foundation does, and then we'll get into some of our other questions.
Thanks, Jeff. It's so good to be back. Thanks for having me again. The Appraisal Foundation, it is a nonprofit organization. It is not a government entity. We are an organization of organizations dedicated to promoting public trust in the valuation profession. It's the coming together of those organizations in 1987 that led to our congressional authorization in 1989 to set the qualification criteria and the standards of practice for appraisers doing appraisals for federally related transactions or those backed by the federal government. We take that responsibility very seriously, and in the 3+ decades since, we continually bring people together, bring organizations together in the pursuit of public trust.
All right. Well, that's a lot, and there's a lot more to that. Again, you'll find out in the prior episode. But let's kind of pick up where we left off. We were really getting into a really good discussion about where are we going as far as people coming into the profession. That is a concern for me as somebody that is gonna probably for a few more years and concerned about the future. And I want others who may be trying to get in the profession to have that opportunity. And we talked about some of the great news that people have right now that I think many don't know about other than the traditional supervisor model and so forth. So I want to mention, I know that you and I both have probably seen this where I go to conferences, I talk to different groups, and there are people that are very interested in becoming appraisers, more so than I would think. In my personal, I know you think it should be that way, but I guess I'm kind of influenced by so much of the negativity that happens that I forget what a great profession it is, honestly. But there are people that really want to that have found out on their own, a lot of them, and they want to become appraisers, and they have taken it up on themselves to take the required education, which is part of what it takes to be an appraiser, but they get stuck on that second part, which I have to find a supervisor who will take me on as a trainee. Otherwise, not only can I not finish up my requirements, I can't even take the exam required to become an appraiser. And I think just that whole process, I think, is a little outdated, in my personal opinion. But just and I know some of those people are watching because they watch everything related to appraising, and they're trying to find out how they can fit in this world and find their way in. And so if there are individuals out there listening that they're in that situation, what do you want to say to them? Because I know some of them been over a year looking, some of them are very discouraged. They feel like, nobody's taking me on. I've reached out to every person in my city, in my state, in my county. Nobody's willing to take me on. And I will say on behalf of the people that they're trying to reach out to, part of it is in talking to appraisers, the actual appraisers, there's a liability there, right? There's a liability. Then there's also the idea of if I train this person, they're going to go and take clients from me and all those kinds of things, which aren't necessarily totally valid, but it's a real thing. There's a cost and time. So to not put it on these potential supervisors, it's all their fault, but we do have this backlog of people. So, and I feel bad. And I wanted to know, what do you have to say to those people who are in that situation?
Call Jeff. He'd be a great supervisor.
They are calling me. They're calling me now.
No, seriously. These aspiring appraisers, people who want to come in, I say to them, thank you. You're making a great career decision, one I wish I would have made decades ago, and keep on trying and explore all the different paths that are out there. First, you mentioned that maybe the supervisor trainee is an outdated method or a model. And maybe that is. And that's why I'm so proud of the AQB for really taking a deep dive to see, to explore everything through that critical lens. So, there could be changes in the future, but let's talk about today. There are so many organizations and individuals right now within the last 5 years who are building new training systems to help people find their path into this wonderful profession. So look at those deeply. Look at the practical applications of real estate appraisal, or PREA. That's that simulated training that I talked about in the last episode. Right now, we have one option, the Appraisal Institute's AI PREA. But soon, OMG, or Oscar Mike Group, is going to have their PREA program on the marketplace. They are in final stages of getting AQB approval. So once that approval happens, there'll be another option there for that simulated training. You can do it anywhere, from wherever you are. And right now it is fully approved in 39 of the 55 jurisdictions that license and certify appraisers. And most of the others are somewhere in rulemaking. So they will be adopting that model fully very soon. So in government, you have to adopt the law, and then you have to adopt the rules that implement the law. So sometimes it takes a while. So there's 2 PREA programs that will be on this market, one on the market now and another one coming very soon. But that's not all. There's practicum. There's practicum. So what is a practicum? People's like, wait, what? That's been around since 2008. Right. Nobody's done it. Oh, it was around since 2008, but it wasn't until recently that the AQB allowed it to be 100%, count for 100% of the experience. There are some really cool practicums. They can be approved by the AQB or by the states. The first one is MPAT. That's Melissa Bond's practicum program. And a practicum, I should have explained, is like, I fashion it as lab work to a college course. So if we've all taken courses where we had to do the book work and then we had to go in the lab and put that book work to practice, that's what a practicum is. So it's not bound by the 1 supervisor to 3 trainee rule. And it's also not bound by having to have actual appraisal assignments. So in this course, these not pretend assignments, but not actual lender-based lab work. You go through the same thing you would be doing if it was an actual assignment in a setting that can involve a lot of other classmates. So MPAT is one. RSDS just got their practicum approved out of the state of Missouri. And there are others. I know that there are other states really looking into developing practicums. The foundation is partnering with the Farm Credit System, thanks to their grant, to build a rural-based practicum that once it's put into place, anybody can say, okay, I'm going to follow this script and we're going to do a practicum for rural markets. So that one will be out hopefully by the end of the year. Then there are others who have put their supervisor trainee model on steroids, we call it, on steroids.
Yeah.
So what is that? So supervisor trainee model, generally, you're required to just have a 1-to-3 a supervisor to trainee ratio, and sometimes that becomes a problem. So there are others who have put together these training programs that are approved by the state. You have to get approved by the state because we don't want puppy mills, appraisal mills. Those aren't good
Right.
for anybody.
Right.
But if the program's approved by the state, high quality program, then that can be a successful model also. I
Yeah.
think RSDS has a model like that. There's a collaboration between the National Society of Real Estate Appraisers and the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. They're working with Fort Liberty and Fayetteville College, which is an HBCU, to put together a program. The 10,000 Black Appraisers organization is working on bringing in lots of new appraisers. There are state coalitions like the Ohio Coalition of Appraiser Professionals that recently announced they have 17 trainees in the pipeline.
Wow.
And there are so many others. So,
Yeah.
don't just take the I can't find a supervisor model as the only model. There are a lot of others.
Yeah.
And I really want to leave these aspiring appraisers with this. And I know it's a little hokey. It's Midwest. I'm a Midwest girl. But one of my poems growing up was Aim for a Star by Helen Marshall. And it starts off with, aim for a star. Never be satisfied with a life that is less than the best. Failure lies only in not having tried, in keeping your soul suppressed. So if you're an aspiring appraiser, keep chasing that dream.
All right. Well, that was great. That was very inspirational. So anybody that is interested in this profession, it is going to take some work. I think it is worth it, especially when you look at things that Kelly just mentioned, the practicum. I know all the people involved in those are great people. Paul Roll is Oscar Mike, and Randy Flowers is with RSDS. And even, I don't know if you know this, but out here in California, Angela Jamont is working on a practicum in the community colleges here in California. So look for that. That's going to be rolled out soon. So you're going to have to do a little digging, but the information is out there, and you can again reach out to me or the foundation. We'd love to help anybody that's trying to find their way, because it's difficult sometimes. And but stay encouraged, and if you know this is for you, there'll be a way to get it done, but it's going to take a little effort. So, which anything worthwhile, right, takes a little effort. So I want to go encourage that. So that is good. Now, I'm going to pivot a little bit, because we've been talking just recently about people getting in and pathways to getting in. On the other side of that coin, there's this concept of things going on the technological side. So we know AI and all kinds of technical tools are out there. AVMs, our company actually does AVMs, but I know there are tools out there. And as we talk about the future and robots replacing all of us, there is a concern among appraisers who, and maybe even trainees are thinking about this, about the technology and how that is going to impact, and it already is. It's already impacting our profession. We have, we have the new rules regarding UAD and those things, which you may get into later. But at this point, I just want to talk. I want you to tell me a little bit about, one, is the role of AI, and two, more importantly, is AI going to replace appraisers in the near future or in the future? How do you see AI playing with our role, which is a lot of it is, going out to properties and measuring and looking at things, and a lot of technology can do that probably a little bit better for us writing skills and doing analysis. We have those tools now. So, tell me about where we stand. Where do you think we're headed as far as with all the technology?
Oh, Jeff, this is a great question. I get it a lot. I hear lots of conversations about artificial intelligence. I grew up in the waning days of carbon paper and the initial emergence of computers, right?
Yes.
We had to take out a little loan in order to get our first computer. They were so expensive, and they did less than my Apple Watch, right?
That's right.
So back in that day, it was the age of everyone knew that computers were going to take away all our jobs, and they
Right.
were going to do with away with all of the paper that anyone ever had. Well, we know those two things didn't happen. Those who embraced technology then with gusto were the big winners in that race. And this new technology, when it's used correctly, is going to help appraisers deliver an even higher quality product for their clients. In fact, that's what we're designed to do, right? We have to deliver high quality products for our client. So, just like appraisers don't have to do things like visit the county courthouse and pull the paper records, they don't have to tape Polaroid pictures onto a legal side paper form anymore. With advanced technology like AI, they can use their time and talents to do that deep analysis and deliver timely opinions of value in a different way.
Right.
It's going to make
Right.
us
No.
better.
No, you're bringing back some memories. Yes, those were the days when I started. Back in those days, we have to get the big rock and we get the chisel and we'd have to hammer and make sure we got all
You
the words. And you couldn't mess up the words because you'd have to get a whole new rock and start
have to
over.
get a whole new rock,
Start
right?
all the way over. It was brutal those days. No, I agree with you, and I do remember when we started with the technology. When I first started praising back in the late '80s, early '90s, and they did talk about the fact that with the things coming out, which I'm gonna talk about UAD in a second, but that was at that time the GSEs or the Freddie and Fannie were at that time starting to gather information about appraisals. And we all said, well, that's it. They're going to get all the information 4 or 5 years. They won't need us. They'll be good. Now that was in '05 or '06, whenever we started with that. So, and we're still here. So I do think I agree with you. I think there is a a kind of a level set that appraisers need to think about as far as do I have all the latest technology that I'm doing? Because there are things that I used to have to do as an appraiser in the field and then come back and put it on my, transfer it back onto my computer at home. But now I do everything with this right here is all it takes. I don't even need a clipboard or any of that stuff. So it's all uploaded to the cloud and I get back. It's in my computer in my office. It's crazy. So that's been great. And I know those kind of technologies are there for us. So you don't believe basically that AI is going to replace appraising altogether and they won't need appraisers. Okay. I didn't either, but
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. So get your opinion on that. That's a good one. So, and then, so that leads back to technology again. I know we talked a little bit about the new data. I mentioned the new data set they call 3.6, which is on the residential side, for those that don't know, a completely new way to gather information, document and record and submit appraisals to the lenders and to your clients, right? It's going to really change from it'll be somewhat of a form, but it's going to be very dynamic with a lot of drop downs and a lot of ifs and this, and if you hit this does that. So it won't be really a static form that we've been using for the last 40 years. So I know that that's going to, starting actually September is going to be the initial kind of testing phase. That's a couple of months from now, which is kind of crazy. But then fast forward to November of next year, they have made it clear that the mandate will be the required way to do appraising only. There won't be a way to right now we're going to go through this kind of transition, a little bit of both. And I know we're waiting for software vendors to come through with their versions of it, which we've seen bits and pieces, but we plan to see more of that. So this is going to really, I think, impact at least the way appraisals done on the residential side for now. I think it's probably something similar coming to commercial, but right now on the commercial residential side. So with all that going on, kind of what I mentioned, kind of related to technology, there are appraisers that I have spoken with personally who have said basically when that all comes about, I'm done. I'm going to retire. I don't want to learn this whole new thing because now they're talking about you really probably need a phone or a tablet, which probably you should have been using anyway, in my mind. But let's say you weren't before, you still could kind of note everything down on a piece of paper, which, I guess theoretically you could still do. But there's a lot more information that's required to put into these forms that weren't into the data set that wasn't in there before. So based on that, What are your thoughts on the fact that in addition to people aging out, like we talked about on our last call, and people, not renewing licenses and things, how do you think that's going to affect particularly the residential side? Do you think there's going to be this in your crystal ball? You think there's going to be this mass exodus of residential appraisers once this becomes, required in about a year and a little over a year from now?
Well, Jeff, that's a loaded question.
Of course.
Here's what I think in my crystal ball. I think maybe a mass exodus is possible. Each person gets to decide what moves them into their next stage in this adventure we call life.
Uh-huh.
I can't predict that for them. But I personally find this idea of mass exodus a little silly. Appraisers are not form fillers. They are deep thinking analysts of market conditions. They compile their opinions and the data behind it into that format that is agreed upon with their client, right?
Uh-huh.
So if they decide that they really don't want to fill forms in or develop their opinions per their client's specs, because the specs have changed to a different way, but they still want to be involved, here's what I say to you. Why not give back the ultimate gift to the profession that was so good to you? Before you hang up that certification, become a supervisor and train your replacements, or cover the expenses of an aspiring appraiser to gain their experience through PARIA or practicum or some other method. They have an opportunity to leave an amazing legacy. And if each one of these people who don't want to do appraisal in a different way can help train that next generation and bring in 2 for everyone that leaves, then we will have solved our legacy problem, and they can be an impactful part of that solution.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. And then it also makes, as you say that, I was thinking maybe as part of bringing in someone, that person may have some of those technological skills that can help you with this transition of going to tablets and phones and all this stuff, because they grew up on that. My kids grew up with a phone in their hand, and most of them did. So I think for that kind of bringing those generations together with the knowledge of someone that's been doing it 30, 40 years with somebody who has technological skills, now you got something there, right? You can say, hey, I can't do all that part. I can tell you how to analyze and how to pick comps and what's a good sale and what's a good, versus how do I put all this into a format or a way that can be transferred to my client and it can jump on there and do it instantly. They don't have to think about it. So I think there's that part of it too. And I like what you said about the legacy, because when most people retire from the appraisal profession, their business just goes away, right? All that knowledge, they just take it with them to the golf course or wherever they do with their time, as opposed to pouring that into someone else who could theoretically, in some ways, maybe take over your business, and you might get a little residual or something like that. You kind of bring them in and teach them with working with your clients. So I think there's a lot of different ways to think about this as a person who is getting up there in age like myself. I'm thinking about, how do I leave a legacy and how do I train the next generation? And there are people that really want to do this and that have the skill, have the knowledge, the technological knowledge, but they don't have the appraisal knowledge, right, that we have with all the years of doing it. So I like that idea, and I think that's a great option before you go out the door, right? Don't just walk out and shut the door. Maybe leave a trail for someone to come in and pick up where you left off. I think that's great. That's a really good idea. All right, I only have like 1 or 2 more questions, and this will be a little bit of a shorter session than the last time, but you can get that on the last one. So, I know we didn't talk about this in detail. You mentioned a couple of things. There's some boards are under the Appraisal Foundation, very important, influential boards that affect the way appraisals are done, which is what we call USPAP, which is the Uniform Standards of Professional Practice. That's the standards board. And then there's a qualifications board, which we've kind of been talking about, what goes into the requirements to become an appraiser. These 2 boards actually focus on that. And I know people on these boards. I do know for a fact they're working boards. They're not just going there and having steak dinners,
Right.
as I like to say. They actually are doing things. So talk a little bit about the boards. And there's also you mentioned the board of trustees, which is also another board. So there's boards there that are under the foundation that kind of help regulate these things, and even opportunities for people to be involved with these boards, not to mention all the others like the IAC, which I'm part of that. I'm part of, there's the Appraisal Advisory Council. So I'm like I'm always in DC for something. So there's all these different things that we're doing to influence the profession in a positive way. So, so based on that, talk about how people can get involved. I kind of mentioned some of these boards, but what are some of the ways, in addition maybe to the boards, or talk a little bit about the boards, and how do I get involved with the Appraisal Foundation to help shape the future?
Oh, there are so many ways, and I hope all of your listeners find a way to get involved with us because, again, the foundation is an organization of organizations. It's not about the staff, it's not about even about the individual board members. It's all of us working together, whether you're at the membership organization level, whether you're at a board member level. There are so many opportunities for involvement. So let's talk about the boards first. The Board of Trustees is our management board. We have 21 members on that board, and they cover all the different perspectives. Don't have to be an appraiser to be on one of those boards because you're setting policy direction, you're managing, you're hiring me. You get to tell me what to do. Yeah, so they meet a couple times a year. They work on outreach activities. They decide what our money is invested in, like the next generation and all of those cool things. So there's abilities to do that. Seats come open every year. There's an application process that opens up in January. Look for it in our website and in our newsletters. The two independent rule-setting boards are the Appraiser Qualifications Board that sets the criteria, and the Appraisal Standards Board, the authors of the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, or USPAP, not goose poop, USPAP. So USPAP and its guidance are written by these board members. These are appraisers. These are people who are just really interested in high ethical standards of practice. The criteria is written by appraisers who have come up through the ranks, who are working in the profession, and who understand and are learning more about how do we bring in that next generation and what are the requirements. So these are appraisers just like your listeners who can apply. Positions come open every year. The positions are usually posted. The announcement goes out in July, and June or July, and then the application process. All of our applications are scored by first anonymous scoring, so we don't know who's who. Our board of trustees does that interview process, and it's not until you get to the third round, which is the virtual round of interviews, and then the final round of public interviews, where we actually know who's applying. So it's not any sort of clubby atmosphere at all.
Right.
Everyone has a fair shake. But what if you don't have time to serve on a board? Because they are working boards. Our boards or their committees meet monthly, and then they meet a couple times a year in person each. And that's a lot of commitment. So what if you don't have time to do that? There are a lot of other ways to be involved. You could comment on an exposure draft. Everybody should comment. Everybody should read the exposure drafts and the concept papers because they impact you directly, or they will impact you and the future of this profession directly. So please take a read. Your comment is very important. Your opinion, appraisers give opinions, and your opinions matter. So you can submit a suggestion if there's something in the standards or something in the qualification criteria that you would like to see changed. You can submit a suggestion through our suggestion box. For lack of a better term, it's a virtual box on our website. Let us know your thoughts. You can request a speaker for your organization. I love to come out. Others from the profession love to come out and really listen to you and share what we know and hear from you. So that's always good. You can attend a public meeting. Oh, where are those public meetings? Yes, indeed, they're virtual. You can attend. And unlike some other organizations, if you attend one of our virtual meetings, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, to get your questions answered. We are delighted to have you join in. We usually get between 200 and 500 people at a public meeting. When we used to
Wow.
hold them in public, we'd be lucky to get 20 to 40. So we will continue to have these public meetings virtual.
Great.
And
Wow.
join a council. Your
Yeah, that's right.
organization, we are an organization of organizations. We have a council for nonprofits, we have a council for profits, and we have a council now, the third council. If you are a consumer advocate or a fair housing advocate, and that's your lane, there is a special council for you. All perspectives are there. It doesn't cost to give us your time and talents. We're always happy to have you on our councils. And so there are so many ways. Just get
Yeah.
involved.
Right. Well, that's awesome. So really, there's no excuse now. You don't have to just sit there on your on on your phone or on your computer on the social media Facebook page. You can actually get involved and be a part of the solution instead of just being a complainer. So to hear that. So to wrap up. So we'll put this in the chat or somewhere where you can go to the website. But if you want to just tell people the website for the Appraisal Foundation, and then let them maybe while they're watching this go on, and I think you can become a member or sign up to get updates and things like that or something like that, right? So tell us a little about how somebody that wants to do that stay current.
Oh, sure. www.appraisalfoundation.org is our website.
Okay.
It's got a wealth of information, a powerful new search engine, a new consumer-friendly store. We will be launching Val. Sorry, I used your name. Val is our digital assistant. She'll be launching soon to answer your questions. But you can sign up on our website for our newsletter. Join the 64,000 others who receive our timely updates straight to your inbox. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. This has been fantastic. Thanks for coming on a second time. And I appreciate all the great information that you've been able to share. And hopefully people can find this information useful to them in whatever capacity, whether an appraiser, trainee, looking to become an appraiser, looking to retire from being appraising. There's a little bit of something here. So thank you for listening, all of you. And thank you, Kelly, for being my special guest, my good friend, Kelly Davis. Thank you so much. So
Thank you,
Marissa, I
Jeff.
think we are ready to, you want to come back on and wrap us up? Thank you.
Yes, that wraps up part 2 of the future of the appraisal profession here on ValTALK. A very big thank you to Kelly Davis. Thank you so much for continuing the conversation and sharing insights on technology, policy, the Appraisal Foundation, and how professionals can take an active role in shaping the industry's future. And again, thank you to Jeff Hogan for leading our discussion with the insight and clarity that makes ValTalk so meaningful and impactful. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out part 1 for the full and entire conversation. And be sure to subscribe to ValTalk on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, so you never miss future insights and episodes from inspirational leaders just like Kelly. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on ValTalk.
Right. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you, Kelly.